Yes, I did press the button. We are live. Yay! Hey, Laurynas, thanks for coming back.
Hello.
How
Hello.
how
Good to
was
be back.
how was your how was your week? How much MCP servers have you built?
It was good. I did not build any MCP servers, which I feel like I'm missing out, and we need to catch up over this 30 minutes.
Yes. I didn't check with you before, but we still have the code base from the last time, right? Somewhere on your machine.
Yes, I just pulled it up, so we can go over that. And then I don't remember if I published it or not, which I feel like I should.
We haven't announced it, at
Okay.
least. So for everyone who's tuning in, last week, we built the main we pulled together the main setup to build an MCP server on Cloudflare. We had a lot of explanation why we would use an MCP, what it does, and we have basically now a setup where we can build an MCP. So now we need to give the MCP some tools and some functionality. And I think the main idea was to do that on an example with BlueSky. That's correct, right?
Yes. All right, let me share on screen. We can recap of what we've had, and then we can get into it. Let's see. Yeah.
And then potentially at one point we hit authentication, maybe not today, maybe next time. We will see.
Yeah, we'll see. So I think the goal is, so this is what we've had since last time. I hope my screen is coming through.
Yes, now it is.
Yes. So we were basically working just out of this index.ts file, and then we made some changes to Wrangler JSON. We install the dependencies to create a model context protocol. We've added an inspector so we can verify that the thing is working. And we've sort of added our main connector route through which any kind of client that uses model context protocol could connect over. And then the example that we sort of copied over from, I think from like a different example, is just like a simple tool that does a summing function. So I think over today, we'll go a little bit of outside of model context protocol world into the BlueSky world to set up a @proto client that would interface with BlueSky's API. And then we're going to add those functions that interface with it as tools so that any client that connects over to the server would be able to sort of use them. And then I think if we're done quickly enough with we're satisfied with a couple of tools that we added, and if we still have time, we can try spinning up a model context protocol client. So using the Cloudflare's agent starter that comes with a lot of the MCP client capabilities baked in, and see if we can try to wire those together so you get a feel for how it works, not through just the inspector of me poking around like here's a tool call, but actually, asking the model to call the tools and seeing how that comes alive.
That sounds good. But I guess for the first step, we need to dive into the BlueSky documentation, right?
Yes. I realized I opened some tabs. I don't know if I had the right ones. So you're going to watch me open some tabs right now. So we've installed that Proto API. So I'm going to open that one. BlueSky TypeScript SDK. I think this one will be useful. Yes. That's actually kind of exactly what I wanted. So we've installed this one. This is their official @proto API.
That's from BlueSky, right?
That's from BlueSky, yeah. It's a pretty rich ecosystem with different trade-offs. And it's evolving quite fast. So last time I worked with it, it was sometimes names are still in progress and changing, but I think we can figure that out. But the basic idea is, like any SDK, it's a class-based SDK, so you import confusingly named ATP agents. So there's like 3 different things in our thing that are named agent, but we're gonna figure that out. So we import an ATP agent, which we're gonna call BlueSky agent, or like ATP at proto agent. We instantiate it, passing in the service URL. BlueSky is a decentralized network, so the main relay and the main PDS, or I think it's called personal data server, that most people use is the central hosted BlueSky server. But everybody can host their own, and they have a lot of tutorials and everything to set that up. But we're just going to point to the main one. And then importantly, in this case, we're going to use app password-based session management. So I used my personal account and I've created an app password, and I'll probably do some dev vars copying off screen just to set that up. I haven't done that before stream, so it will be like a brief moment of that. We ideally stretch goal, we could use an OAuth base next time if our
that's where it starts being complicated, right? That's what Harshal mentioned the last time in our stream. Like, this is a part where
but if you get that right, then it's very cool, because right now I'll be able to host it, and I'll be able to, hopefully I'll be able to show poking things around, and then I'll have to take it down because it will use my account as a way to interface with that API, and like I don't want other people to using that. Whereas in this case, it would be account agnostic, and you'd sort of tell it to connect to that MCP server using maybe a sort of your handle, and then you would go through your auth flow, and then now that session would be in your name with just the MCP servers and intermediate. But we're going to leave that probably for the next time, because it is there's a little bit of work. It's interesting and worth going through, but
and it deserves an own episode because it's complex as well.
Yes, I think that's right. Okay, so I think maybe this is a good place. So what we can do, let me see. I think the best way to go about this, I'm trying to think if it's worth setting up a new file or just still continuing in the same one, but we need to instantiate our agent, our BlueSky agent, BlueSky SDK. Let me quickly check one thing in the documentation that I'm doing off screen, but here we go. Okay. We can basically, if we import this and we can instantiate, I think probably the best spot to do that is inside of the initializer function. This runs when the MCP server initializes, and we want it to pick up the environment variable that we're going to set as the with the app password, and establish that connection with the, or being able to then establish that connection. So we're going to delete the this server tool.
Yeah, we don't need the calculator anymore.
We don't need the calculator anymore. We can actually set it here. I think that makes sense. It's now going to complain that it's has no initializer, and so now this is sort of the basic. Or actually, I don't know if we'll be able to set it this way. So maybe in order so that it doesn't complain, we'll just set it to good old that. We either, because we can't guarantee that this appears on initialization, we set it as either ATP agent or undefined. This is basically it for, I think, for like a passwordless or an unauthenticated agent initialization. So now if we look at what exists on the agent, we can see all kinds of different actions that we can take that we'll then be able to expose as tools. So I think one that we can, I'll add it as comments. Well, I'll comment it out later, but one that I always like to show and that sort of has a certain sense of dynamism in it is search. But I don't know, is it search actors?
No idea. What is an actor on BlueSky?
Or actually, yeah, their API has changed a little bit since I worked last time. So you're watching me figure this out live, but maybe actually we can pull it up in here. If we, yeah, here.
Perfect.
MCP reference. I'm probably, someone will correct me in the comments, someone who's deeper in the app proto ecosystem. They have terminology around actors and feeds.
What is do you know what the actor is in the BlueSky language?
The real answer is not really. I know what an actor is in general, but in BlueSky's context, not really. But judging by the what I'm seeing in the docs right now, they're just profiles.
Okay. Yeah.
So I have an account on BlueSky. I don't know where they use the word actor, not account, but it's naming. Naming is always hard.
You're an actor now.
But I'm an actor. But for example, feed is a feed. And one of the cool things about BlueSky is you can create your own feeds. That's like a whole separate thing. But we can, for example, interface with the feed API to search posts. That might be a good one to start with, as that's like quite a dynamic one. And if you use it with an LLM, it's quite fun to ask it to pick words to search for. I think this is the best one because there's like a whole other ones. There's a bunch for direct messages, but looking at it, I think this is the one we want. It's the search posts. I think so. We can, if we use that, and then, so this is the one that we want, and it will require passing in the query string to search for, and then all kinds of different other things that we can pass in that will we can pick defaults, but we can sort of pick that as the main one, and for now just leave it in the comments so that we have that as top of mind. So we need to initialize the agent. We are probably going to need to authenticate it. I don't think this is, it's made against a public BlueSky PU, but I don't know if this can accept unauthentic. Oh yeah, this public endpoints which don't require authentication can be made available against the public BlueSky API.
So maybe let's try if that.
Yeah.
Do you have the public in the URL in your code? Sorry, I didn't pay attention. Then maybe put the public, like the.
Yeah, this. Let's see if this. My hope is that the client, if it doesn't receive any information about authentication, because TypeScript is not complaining here that, hey, missing authentication session, it sort of automatically routes to the public.api, but I'm not sure.
Well, we will. I guess we can test this.
We can test this and we can find out. Let's see. Because in other cases you'll want to like sort of create.
You would hand in your password and your username to interact, right?
Yeah. You would sort of. I think there's a. Is there a way to do this?
Oh, that's create a command.
It is quite different since I did it last time. So I'm watching me.
I'm wondering if that's a login. Like if you scroll down.
Yes, that you're probably correct. So in this case, it would be this agent login, and then indeed you pass in an identifier, which is the username or the handle, and the passwords, both of which we'd grab. So we can, let's add this as well, just for our own sake. and keep it commented out if we need to come back to this. I see Copilot's helpfully filling it in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 as my password. That is exactly my password.
Oh no! But now everyone knows.
I will need to rotate it. Okay. If we come back to what the little piece that we deleted, we deleted a tool registration using the tool method. So we can start with that. Now that we've initialized the agent.
Yeah. This again is important for the agent, right? So now we are again in the agent context, in the MCP context, not in the confusing name BlueSky agent context.
Yes. Let's rename this as BlueSky agent.
Yes, I like that.
So that we can follow along this a little bit better. Ooh, that's not what I want. And we're going to replace that. Okay. We're going to call this. So every tool callback accepts, you need to sort of pass in at least 2 things, which is the name of the tool and the callback, which is what to do when this tool is called. And I believe there's also, it can also have input schema. So if it expects arguments to be provided in a certain shape, you provide that as a, for example, as a Zod schema. I believe, let's pull up the Model Context Protocol TypeScript SDK. And if we scroll down to tools, yes. So this is a good reference. I'll zoom in a little bit. You have the name, then you have the input that you want to receive. Or if you don't have an input, then you can just straight up have a callback. But in this case, we did see the search post requires at least the query parameter. We need to know what to search for, and some other elements in there. So what we can do is right now just do an empty object and immediately jump into the callback itself. The reason I'm doing that is I like sort of working with both the SDK and then adjusting the tool parameters at the same time, so it can kind of map one-to-one. It's like, okay, SDK, BlueSky SDK is asking me for a query parameter. Did I add this as a tool input? No, maybe. And then Copilot is also very helpful because it sort of recognizes this pattern instead of like a very boilerplatey thing. You write it out in your search post call, and it automatically sort of pre-fills it in the tools input. So let's see. What we want here is the query, which is Q, and then query over here.
Oh yeah, and then it's because it's potentially undefined, right? So now it's complaining.
Yeah, this is a good check. So, I mean, what we can always do is, if there's no agent, we just return that the agent was not initialized. So this prevents us sort of from ending up in a situation where like a call might be an issue that we haven't registered an agent. We sort of protect against that. That's like a nice feature of TypeScript. So this is actually already a pretty basic tool that we have, except for, of course, that we haven't defined it yet. And now Copilot here is very helpfully adding this in. So we have a search post call that accepts the query itself. What are you searching for as an input? Then there's, I don't know if you saw, but when we didn't have this, TypeScript was complaining as like, you're trying to destructure for a parameter that we haven't defined in the params yet. So that's nice. So we add that. TypeScript doesn't complain. If the agent doesn't exist, return agent not initialized. This is the This is also another thing where it's like if we didn't correctly returned the this thing would complain again. There's a specific shape that the tool callbacks are expected to return in. Yeah, and this is how we sort of return. We get our search result, and we return it. I don't know if this is the best way to return this like this. And I see that we have a whole bunch of syntax errors because
I think there might be a bracket. I don't know. Is there a bracket?
Let's see. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you, Copilot. Okay. We can see and test this. We've added one tool.
So now we can go again to the inspector, right? So that we see our MCP server. And I guess we can start searching BlueSky now, hopefully.
Hopefully, they allow some, maybe with some rate limits probably, but there's hopefully there's some unauthenticated requests that we can make. Let's see. I think it was 6274. Yes. Okay. We want to connect over streamable HTTP to 8787. This is where our MCP server is running. This is from the last time. We're connected. We can list tools. We see the search post tool. And let's see if we send a query for TypeScript. Nope.
Oh,
there we go. Okay.
So, okay, maybe try the public. I would be curious to know if it changes if you try the public or if we really need to authenticate, because I understand as well that the public API. Oh, well, it also says, well, I have to read this again.
Yeah, I wonder how this decides on how does the BlueSky, the @proto SDK, how does it decide which thing to route to? I'm kind of curious.
Can you go back to the documentation? Does it not also say you have to authenticate?
Yeah, so it did point out that, like, oh yeah, this one was part of BlueSky's application, lexicon APIs. That's
and
the
then
app.
Oh yeah, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
That is a sentence like authenticated requests are usually made to the user's PDS with automatic service proxying.
Yeah. So this is where it comes, like, if you're making different requests against specific different personal data servers. I feel like we need this is something there's probably homework I should have done, which is explain how BlueSky works, but that's like a whole other episode.
Different universe.
It's a whole different universe. I wonder if we just open this up. Oh yeah, this is just the application view. I guess. I mean, this is something that we can probably quite easily do just for this session purposes.
I mean, I guess you have to log in, right? Or is that the login method that we commented out, or how do you authenticate? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So in this case, what I'll do is I'm going to create a dev-vars file, which is something that gets picked up by the Wrangler itself, and we're going to create two environment variables, which is one is going to be the BlueSky identifier, and the other one is going to be the BlueSky password. And this one we can just use my handle, which is laurynas.cc, and this one I'm going to move off screen.
No, why?
I know, right?
Now
it would be so much more fun if I did it on stream. Let's see. I'm going to close that, and now I need to make sure not to click on .devvars because I will immediately have to go and rotate it.
So now I can think how I can social engineer you to click on it.
Yeah. Thankfully, I don't think it appears. No, it does actually. Hold on, that's not good. I can never get with the cursor of VS Code. They're sometimes smart about not showing that file in the quick picker, so adding just a little bit of friction so you don't just straight up open it. There's a really good extension that I use called Cloak for these purposes, but it only works with .env files. Now it doesn't recognize .dev, .vars as something that it needs to mask, and I haven't had the time yet to like maybe fork it and or add that as a feature. Anyway, next time. That's for that's. I'll do that the first time I expose my my login details.
I mean, I exposed them so many times. I rotated not BlueSky, but other ones, and I had to rotate. So that's okay. We've been there. I've been there, but it's good if you don't go that route. So
yeah, it's more fun to do it without without having to do it in a rush, basically.
That's fair.
Okay. In the meantime, I've sort of uncommented the login function, and I've added the two properties. I was wondering how to do that, but looks like in the MCP server, if you like, all of the environment variables are usually, they're just available on the this.env. I think the reason we're getting the type errors is because I've added the dev vars, and I haven't regenerated the types. So if I run cf typegen, which is the Wrangler types command since last time, and worker that's interesting. Is it maybe? Yes. My guess is because we haven't passed the env. Yes. So now we pass that as a type generic so that it knows about the environment. This is, I think in our, as default, when you run Wrangler types, it sort of saves them as env. Yes, exactly. You can see here, there's a interface env extends Cloudflare environment, which means that that interface, the type interface, is now available everywhere. So we've added that, and now is this we need to await that, and I don't know. Oop, that's not what I meant. Await, and I don't know if there's anything interesting on this end that we need to. No, I don't think. It's just a response. So I think we can just ignore it. We don't need to deal with any follow-ons. So we just make.
I'm curious to see that. I'm curious to see if we now can search. So if we understood everything correctly, because you said it has changed as well. So let's see.
Yeah. Let's see in here. If we come back here, we reconnect to our BlueSky server and list tools. We still see the search. And if we run TypeScript, yeah, there we go.
Oh, now
we're good. So now we're getting, this is a little bit hard to read, but we're now getting the posts that have, they don't show the post text. So they only show the URL, or maybe no, actually, there it is. You see the, it's a little bit hard to read.
There's something about C#. I wish C# devs just stuck to C# instead of imposing their way of doing things onto JavaScript.
Great social media, immediate is very what's it called? You search for anything and you get like it's a good old passive aggressive remarks. It's a very live social media API experience. I remember doing some side projects with BlueSky API and like trying to build a feed and subscribing to the Firehose, and then realizing pretty quickly that you also need a lot of moderation for the content that you're streaming in, because like if you just take everything, it's there's not a lot. I mean, you have to filter through a lot of stuff, and we're now just sort of running a simple search because that's the only parameter that we use in this case. I see we're basically adds time.
Yeah, I wanted to say, like, should we, because you said we want to give that also to an agent, so we understand then basically how an agent would call now the tool. Maybe that's something we do next week with the authentication together, so we can prep that a little bit. Maybe we can think of 2 tools, so our agent might have a second one.
Yeah.
And then I think that could be cool. And I guess next week we are also in the same location, so we can
stream live from the same place.
We can stream live and see how that goes. But yeah, that's super cool. I think it's super handy because I feel I have a better understanding now how I would getting started with this. And also, if I'm not using BlueSky, I could also now understand, okay, in the tool, I would define basically the tools that I want to have for my MCP server. And I think that's quite handy. What if you could go for one MCP server that you would like to build that's not BlueSky? Which one do you have another one that you would go for?
That's a good question. I briefly had an idea. Like I need to, like all of the, let's say BlueSky or GitHub or all of these, they're often pretty quick at developing these, but the annoying part where I need to do a lot of clicky. What's the word that you use? Clicky bunty things is usually stuff. Yeah, clicky bunty is like when you have to if I have to go do any work with any government websites, and like Lithuanian government websites are generally pretty good, but it's still a lot of motions that you have to go through. So I've had an idea a long time ago in winter to maybe see if there's one particular website that I use a lot and see if they have an API, and just like, can I something that's maybe lower stakes where I can trust an LLM to sort of not screw up my records or anything, but it's also something that is maybe tedious or is like to keep up to date. So those are the ones that I've been thinking is like I wouldn't necessarily host it just because of all of this industry, but like this is a lot of stuff where I kind of want to automate a lot, and it's just like, hey, can you do this thing? Can you find that? Which would be quicker than sort of navigating through the interface for the right information.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. It just brought me to the point, like thinking of the German system and the Berlin system, how hard it is to get appointments, but it's probably not a case for an MCP server, but probably a good case for automation tool, like a tool that gives you or finds appointments for you or when they are live and is like, okay, I take this one, you go. Which, yeah.
I mean, you could do, you could do 2 things. One, a client agent that is sort of, its purpose is always to make appointments. And then you have an MCP server that is like shaped around specific government institution or something that can surface the right information, what kind of things you want for that. And the general purpose agent doesn't know how to necessarily go to fill in specifically that appointment. It just I need to figure out how to do appointments, and then connects to that MCP server, which tells it about how to do appointments in this sort of section. And that's how the agent sort of then learns and goes through and hits the right endpoint, supplies the right information, and so on. That could be like a fun project to build.
That's true, but you have to deal with all the governmental stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, cool. I mean, thanks for joining. Thanks for bringing a tool to our MCP server, and I'm looking forward to next week. So next week we can hook that up to an agent, but also look into the really hot topic of to authentication, I think. So let's do that.
Exciting. All right. See you next week.
See you next week. Bye.
Bye.